Hello, everyone. This is Guberman, CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. This video today is about QA expert Guberman opens an 84-year-old law, FARA, possibly exposing ANSI-ANAB-IAF government agencies and corporations. And we will show this to you very shortly. And I think it's absolutely deplorable, ladies and gentlemen, that we're in this situation. But let me read you this before I go into the placards. There are very few people that are convicted, that are convicted for the Foreign Agents Registration Act violations, mainly because the government did not enforce the law, probably because of themselves and their cronies being involved in business dealings with foreign governments. Many Democrats and Republicans heavily profit from foreign governments, and I doubt any of them register as required by FARA. Why not? Because FARA will place checks and balances on them. So yes, they skirt the issue with, being a lobbyist too will skirt the issue. So let me just show you this. April 17th, I was down in Washington supporting Sam Salipar concerning the Boeing FUPA on the 777, 787. We've been seeing most recently Boeing admitted to fudging documentation on the 787. That is nothing new. They were made a regulator in 2009, FAA regulator, which means that they did not have to tell the FAA about putting the MCAS system on the Ethiopian or Indonesian airline. They did not have to tell about design of aircraft because they are the FAA. In fact, the CEOs, from Jim McCurvey to Dennis Muhlenberg to David Calhoun, are basically FAA administrators. So I was there. I've got documentation that corroborates what Sam Salipar is stating. That's number one. Now we're going to go in with the FARA deal, and you're going to see this. It's absolutely deplorable. We're going to try to break this down very simply. You have ANSI. The American National Standards Institute is a private, not-for-profit, non-governmental corporation that has both federal agencies and corporations on board. They have been around, ladies and gentlemen, they have been around for over 100 plus years. Here it is. This is where FARA comes into play because we're going to discuss this. We may even just leave the video right after this and not go any further because it's deplorable. In 2015, Randy Doherty, the vice president of ANAB, the chairman of the IAF, and also the principal in the IAF tax report, handed over leadership of the IAF to this communist Chinese national, Zhao Jinwu, who's been involved with our quality since 1994. He, at the time, was also the chairman, or actually the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services in Beijing, China. He's also mandated by his country of origin, this is the kicker, to take our data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7, 2018. ANSI takes over complete control over ANAB, and you have federal agencies and corporations on board. The kicker of FARA comes in when Randy Doherty in 2017 was being advertised on the Department of Homeland Security. And his partner there, who said, he wrote a note saying he's so proud of Zhao Jinwu, has been there since 1994, et cetera, et cetera. His partner there was on the IAF. So do you think he signed FARA, one of the documents? More than likely not, because what happens is the DHS sits on ANSI's board, right over by the DOJ, right over by the FBI. So none of this is functioning properly at all. The FARA, they'll say, well, that's an old law. It's 84 years old, big deal, something to that nature. In 1938, 84 years old. And you take a look at this, and it's a mess. It really is. And he was the guy in 2017 who stood in the Wuhan laboratory issuing a certificate to a laboratory that was not ready. It was not ready, and we have the documentation. In fact, you'll find it down below. Politico said, they went to the laboratory in 2018. This is 2017. He was standing in the laboratory, and they said the scientists were begging them for trained technicians, which they never got, okay? That's why the COVID virus was released. And we have an actual testimony from the vice president of ANSI-ANAB, Ms. Pamela Sayo, who stated under deposition that there is variance in laboratory procedures and protocols. They're from one lab to another. So when you have variances and you have personnel that were not trained or they didn't have enough adequate personnel trained, the first containment in any BioLevel 4 lab per CDC document written in 2019 concerning Wuhan lab training, is they said the first containment in any well-run lab is well-trained technicians. So he basically gave a certificate to a laboratory that was not functional. And that, to me, I guess that's what they call voluntary consensus standards. So this is about the Foreign Agents Registration Act. I wonder if these guys signed that, because, as I said, not only that, while he sat on the DHS, there was a guy, Phil Matheson, who's getting $262,000 tax-free, a royalty payment at the time, plus his federal salary. It's absolutely disgusting how you have federal agencies in bed with organizations like ANSI-ANAB. And I will show you this just to corroborate what I'm saying here. You have the Department of Justice, who is looking into Boeing, okay? They're looking into Boeing, but how can you look into Boeing when they sit on the board? I will show this to you right now. They sit on the board as well. Boeing sits on the board. And also, you have the Department of Defense sitting on the board. You have Boeing on the board. You have the FDA, CDC, NIH on the board. But this is the real kicker. The DOJ is going in as a watchdog. Watchdog? How could they do that? And Boeing was made an FAA regulator in 2009. How could one regulator watch over another regulator? They didn't have to tell anybody about the MCAS system because they are the FAA. They didn't have to tell anybody about aircraft designs because they are the FAA. When I was standing there supporting Sam Salipar in April of 2024, not that long ago, I have the documentation to corroborate it. And as we've seen, that Boeing confessed to fudging documentation on the 787, and they are an FAA regulator. How could one regulator watch over another? And this is the kicker, too. You have Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, state that we must maintain vigilance over China. Yet, ladies and gentlemen, between 2015 and 21, his agency was watched over by China, and also hacked by China. We have the data. We don't make this up. The reason why I do this is to inform you that we have laws on the books that should be implemented, but our politicians are too slow to the draw. You have it time and time and time again, an example of slow on the draw. And I'm going to give this to you as the final example, and we're going to close this out, is that and I have to give this as an example. In 2009, Lockheed Martin got hacked by China taking the F-35 fighter. In 2012, and by the way, they sat on ANSI's board, and then they sat on the IAF through the membership of ANSI, just like United Technologies did, sat on ANSI's board, right on the IAF, same thing. But United Technologies got hacked, Sikorsky aircraft, taking the T-700 engine, the Black Hawk, it's absolutely abominable. In 2015, in the Connecticut Mirror, it said, with China's okay, Lockheed Martin closes in on the purchase of Sikorsky aircraft. And the kicker is this: our politicians who are supposed to be watching our back, and our number one supplier needed China's okay. They've already hacked them in 2009. They took the data of United Technologies, and you know how much they spent on that? On a raped company? $9 billion. If I was the guy, I'd offer him $500,000, and that's it, because the technology was ripped off. It said in there, too, Connecticut lawmakers praise Lockheed Martin for working with an international regulator. In essence, it should have said, Connecticut lawmakers, Rosa DeLauro, Richard Blumenthal, terrible. I just saw Richard too. And I asked his aides about that too. Rosa DeLauro, Richard Blumenthal, Jim Himes, and Christopher Murphy all praise Lockheed Martin for working with Communist China. That's what it should have said. Rather than watching our back. Sometimes I wonder if that lapel pin that they wear for the American flag has a stamp on it made in China. We ought to ask. Maybe they put nanotechnology in there of GPS so they can follow the politicians around and also listen. You ever think about that? My telephone number is 203-556-1493. Or Daryl, DARYL, @yahoo.com. I look forward to hearing from you. And this was about the Foreign Agents Registration Act. And I thank you.